Welcome back. This is the place where we take a stack of challenging source material, the articles, the research, all the notes, and we try to boil it all down into those critical nuggets of knowledge that hopefully genuinely help you understand the world around you.
And today's topic is a big one.
It really is. Today, we are wading into territory that is intensely personal, often pretty painful, but absolutely vital. We're talking about relationships.
Right.
And when we think about commitment ending, our minds, they immediately go to the cinematic moments,
The
right?
big stuff.
The big stuff, the shattered glass, the shouting match in the rain, the text message that confirms a betrayal. We instinctively look for the explosion.
Yeah, the clear, undeniable breaking point.
Okay, so let's unpack this,
Yeah.
because the source material we are diving into today, it's called The Quiet Demise of Marriage, Emotional Neglect. And it introduces a really radical idea.
It does.
What if the greatest threat to a long-term commitment isn't that dramatic conflict or some spectacular betrayal, but something something far, far quieter.
Yeah.
Something we often miss until the damage is completely irreversible.
It forces us to redefine failure, really. I mean, we're so accustomed to thinking of relational failure as an active transgression. Something was aggressively done to wound the relationship.
Someone did something wrong.
Exactly. But this material completely flips the script. It frames emotional neglect as a passive, almost subtractive process, a slow, relentless withdrawal.
A disappearance.
A disappearance, and yet one that yields the most profound, silent pain and ultimately the most certain kind of failure.
That distinction is just.
Yeah?
It's incredibly compelling because the source challenges us to look away from the drama we usually anticipate and focus instead on the insidious nature of absence.
Right, absence as an action.
Yeah, yes. So our mission today is to decode this quiet demise. We're going to try and define emotional neglect, not by what happens, but by what stops happening. And hopefully, we can understand precisely why silence in a marriage can be infinitely louder and far more lethal than shouting.
It's about identifying that wound that simply doesn't bleed on the outside.
That's it. That's the perfect way to put it. So let's start with the hook the source material uses, because it's just brutal in its simplicity. It delivers this powerful opening statement that's, it's designed to make you reevaluate every single relationship breakdown you've ever witnessed.
Yeah, it's a gut punch.
It is. It says, POV, your marriage didn't break because of cheating. It broke because one of you felt alone for too long.
And what's so fascinating here is the immediate prioritization. It just cuts through the noise. We are inherently primed to look for that active transgression, right?
Always.
The infidelity, the financial deception, the explosive argument. But the source material suggests that those highly visible events are frequently just the symptoms of a deeper pre-existing condition.
So the cheating isn't the cause of death. It's more like the official announcement.
That's a great way to think about it. It bypasses the symptom and goes straight to the ultimate consequence, which is that passive suffering, the feeling of being alone.
I love that shift in perspective.
Yeah.
But let me play devil's advocate for just a second here.
Please do.
This is where the argument gets a little tricky, I think. Because most divorce filings, they point to active issues, right? Irreconcilable differences, infidelity. If we tell people that those things are just symptoms, aren't we almost? I don't know, letting the person who commits the overt act off the hook.
That's a really important question.
Doesn't that diminish the impact of a true act of betrayal?
That's a fair and essential challenge, and the source is actually very careful here. It is absolutely not about excusing the act of transgression. Infidelity is still a profound betrayal. The point isn't about excuse, it's about diagnostic accuracy.
Diagnostic accuracy, okay.
Yeah, it's about getting the timeline of the relationship's death correct. The physical act of betrayal is the loudest event,
Yeah.
It's the one that often guarantees the end. But it rarely, if ever, happens in a total vacuum.
So it's the final domino, not the first one.
Precisely. Think of the analogy the source suggests, sort of implicitly. The infidelity or the big fight is the earthquake that finally topples the building.
Right.
But the emotional neglect, that was the structural corrosion. It was the rust on the steel beams, the slow rot in the foundation that was happening quietly over 5, 10, maybe 15 years. It's what made the building fundamentally unstable in the first place.
I see. So you have to look at the slow dissolution, not just the final dramatic bang, to understand the true timeline of betrayal.
Exactly. The source argues the real betrayal was that slow dissolution that preceded the final act, not just the act itself. The foundation was already gone.
So the core function of the relationship was, it was already dead. You're saying that feeling alone for too long is the actual root breaking point.
Precisely. Because what is the core function of a committed relationship? At the end of the day, it's to mitigate aloneness,
Right, to have a partner.
to have a partner. It is a shared ecosystem built on mutual witnessing, validation, and emotional accessibility. And when that foundation erodes, when you realize the person closest to you, the one sitting across the dinner table, is emotionally inaccessible, the infrastructure of the marriage remains, but its purpose is completely obsolete.
The house is still standing, but no one's home.
No one's home. The relationship dies of emotional solitude. And this is so critical. The partner who eventually leaves or commits an overt transgression is often just the one who finally broke the unbearable silence.
So
By seeking connection elsewhere, maybe, or just by announcing the reality that the relationship had already died in their heart. The emotional abandonment, the source argues, almost always precedes the physical one.
wow, that is a profound difference. It reframes conflict entirely. And, okay, this leads directly to the origin point of neglect that the source identifies, which analyzes that crucial distinction. Emotional neglect doesn't start with shouting, it starts with silence. And this is where we run into so much trouble, right? Because we are all conditioned to believe that silence equals peace. No fighting means things are good.
Yes. We see a lack of conflict as a sign of health, but shouting is demanding. Shouting is messy. Shouting requires immediate attention or resolution.
It forces engagement.
It forces engagement. A fight, however painful it might be, is a form of communication. It signals that both parties are still invested enough to fight for something or even against something within that relational structure.
So there's still energy there, still friction.
There's still friction. And that friction, in a kind of perverse way, proves that the connection still matters enough to generate heat.
So, okay, conflict, provided it's not abusive, of course, is actually a sign that the attachment system is still active. The source implies you have to care enough to even engage in the friction.
Absolutely. You have to care enough to fight. Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, silence, conversely, signals withdrawal and emotional divestment.
It's the sound of giving up.
It's the sound of one party quietly leaving the relational structure while maintaining the physical appearance of being present. And it's so much easier to dismiss chronic silence as, we're just busy, or we're comfortable, or even we're mature now, we don't fight like we used to.
That's a big one. We've matured past it.
But chronic silence, especially when it concerns emotional availability, is an active choice to withhold. It's not passive.
That's why it's so destructive long-term, more than any argument.
Far more, it's insulation, not intimacy. It's a deliberate, or maybe even a subconscious, construction of a wall using materials that appear harmless, busyness, routine, comfort, but which effectively blocks all emotional exchange.
That distinction. Conflict is energy. Silence is the absence of energy. That is genuinely chilling. And it explains why the quiet demise is so hard to reverse. I mean, you can negotiate with high energy, you can try to contain an explosion, but what do you do with nothingness?
Right. How do you fight a void?
You can't.
And that nothingness is the guarantee of the end, as the source points out when it says, emotional neglect doesn't scream, it quietly ends marriages.
So why? Why does the quietness guarantee the end?
Because there is no visible, loud problem to fix. The problems are completely internalized by the neglected partner. They're the only one feeling it. They feel the absence of connection, the emptiness, the loneliness.
And they're alone in that feeling.
Completely. But when they try to raise the issue, when they say, hey, I feel disconnected, or we haven't really talked in a while, the partner who is withdrawing can truthfully, from their perspective, claim, what are you talking about? We don't fight. Nothing is wrong. You're making drama where there is peace.
Oh, that is brutal.
It's a powerful form of gaslighting, whether it's unintentional or not. And it forces the neglected partner to question their own reality and their own emotional needs. They start to think, maybe I'm the crazy one. Maybe I'm too needy.
That's the most difficult place to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
You are facing a profound relational crisis, but your partner is denying the existence of the crisis itself. It makes any kind of intervention or repair just impossible, because the damage is happening entirely in the blind spot of the relationship.
Exactly. It's the equivalent of a slow internal structural failure that you only recognize when the roof caves in. By the time the quiet ends, by the time the neglected partner finally says, I'm leaving, or finds that emotional connection outside the marriage, the relationship has actually been dead for months or years.
So they're just announcing a fact.
They're simply announcing a fact that was already established in their emotional reality. They are not breaking the marriage in that moment. They are exiting a ghost house.
You can't negotiate with a ghost, and you can't solve a conflict that the other person claims doesn't exist. That's why recognizing the shift is so crucial. We need to look past the absence of screaming and instead focus on the subtle markers, the specific behaviors that signal the start of that quiet demise.
Which is exactly what the source material helps us identify next.
And here's where it gets really genuinely interesting for me. Because the source material doesn't just leave us with this, philosophical definition of emotional
I
neglect.
think it gets practical.
It gets very practical. It provides a behavioral checklist. It pinpoints specific, mundane, everyday actions that signal the beginning of the end. And these aren't dramatic failures. They're not huge betrayals.
No.
They are small daily withdrawals, like slowly turning down the thermostat on the relationship until everything just feels cold.
And this specificity is so invaluable because people often ask, okay, but what does emotional neglect actually look like day to day? Where do I draw the line between just being comfortable and being indifferent?
A very fair question.
A very fair question. And the answer, as presented here, is deceptively simple, and it's entirely behavioral. It is the consistent reduction of relational effort. It's the death by 1,000 paper cuts of indifference.
Okay, so let's start with symptom number 1, the disappearance of curiosity. The source frames this so simply. It says, it's when they stop asking how your day was.
And on the surface, that sounds so trivial, right?
It does. Almost petty.
Almost petty. We might assume that after 5 or 10 or 20 years, we kind of know the script. We know the job, we know the routine, we know the colleagues. We assume there's nothing new under the sun.
Right. How was your day? Fine. Okay, great. The end.
Exactly. But the daily check-in is not about the information received. It is not about logistical updates. It's about the ritual of validation.
You're talking about the quality of the question then, not just the asking of it.
Absolutely. The ritual of validation is a moment where one person actively demonstrates, you are still complex to me. You are still relevant to me. And the unique experience of your life, even the tedious parts, is worth my active, sustained attention.
That's a heavy lift for how was your day.
And it's all in there. When asked genuinely, this question acts as a tiny bridge built across the emotional distance that was created by the day's separation.
So, okay, it's the difference between asking, did you remember to pick up the dry cleaning and do the thing? Which is purely task-oriented.
Task-oriented, logistical.
Versus, how did you navigate the complexity of doing the thing today? What emotional residue did it leave behind for you?
Precisely. And stopping this daily inquiry signals a fundamental shift from active curiosity to passive assumption. Or even worse, outright indifference.
The relationship then transitions from being a dynamic partnership where two lives intersect and influence each other to two separate parallel lives that are just happening under the same roof. They become adjacent but not connected.
And when curiosity fades, the partner's internal world ceases to be a shared territory. That withdrawal often starts so subtly. Maybe the question is asked, but before the answer is even finished, the partner is looking at their phone.
We've all seen that.
Or maybe they nod and then immediately launch into their own day without acknowledging anything that was just shared. It's a check-the-box question, not a real one.
I think this raises a really important question for anyone listening. How often do we mistake knowing our partner's schedule for actually caring about their emotional experience within that schedule?
Oh, that's it.
We confuse data points with human connection.
And that initial genuine question, how was your day, really? When it's asked with focus and eye contact. That's like an insurance policy against emotional isolation. When it stops, it's often the very first step towards self-erasure for the other partner.
Self-erasure.
Yeah. If they start asking, the neglected person eventually stops sharing because they conclude, my life is irrelevant to the person I share it with, so why bother?
And that leads perfectly into symptom number 2, which is maybe the most painful of all, the illusion of listening. The source notes, when they listen, but don't really hear you. This moves beyond just curiosity and into processing capacity.
This is a devastating experience. You have to contrast hearing words, which is just a simple auditory function, with truly hearing emotion and meaning. That's empathetic processing.
Let's break that down. What does superficial listening actually look like?
Well, it comes in many forms, and the source is good on this. There's the phone scroller, right? The person who maintains intermittent eye contact and offers a non-committal, or wow, that's crazy. While they're simultaneously scrolling, their body language is screaming that whatever they're viewing is more compelling than what is being shared.
Okay, I know that one. Then there's the immediate fixer, the person who hears the problem, but they completely bypass the emotional context, and they just jump straight to an overly simple, non-contextual solution.
You should just quit your job, or just tell your boss to.
Yeah.
It completely invalidates the speaker's need to simply process the feeling. They don't want a solution, they want a witness.
And what about the distracted hummer? The person who's physically present, maybe they're making dinner or folding laundry, providing just minimal verbal input, but their entire attention is clearly elsewhere. They're treating their partner's communication like background noise, like a radio.
That's it. In all of these scenarios, the body is present, the ears are functioning, but the mind and the heart are completely elsewhere. And this isn't just poor communication, it's a profound failure of attunement. The speaker is trying to share their internal world to make it external and accessible to their partner, and the attempt has failed. The connection attempt was rejected, but it was rejected subtly without a direct confrontation.
Right, so the speaker feels guilty for even noticing I'm being too sensitive.
Exactly, and that experience is so incredibly corrosive. The consequence for the neglected partner is the immediate realization that their lived experience is not registered, not valued, and certainly not shared. They are essentially talking into an empty space.
Or worse, talking at a prop.
A prop, yes. And this profound loneliness, the loneliness that's experienced in the conversation, is so much worse than being alone in an empty room. Because here, you have confirmation that the person you chose to share your life with is unwilling or unable to meet you emotionally.
It's a performative presence.
This performative presence, it's designed to maintain the peace and avoid confrontation, but it stars the relationship of its most vital nutrient, shared understanding.
It sets up a scenario where the neglected partner learns that vulnerability is punished. Not necessarily with anger, but with indifference. And indifference is a powerful, powerful deterrent to sharing.
It absolutely is.
Which moves us to symptom 3. Affection fades. The source notes that this isn't just about sexual intimacy, but the background hum of physical and emotional reassurance.
This is where we see the relationship transition from a partnership into just cohabiting roommates. When we talk about affection, we are discussing the nonverbal currency of emotional commitment. These are the micro moments of high-fidelity reassurance that keep the attachment system strong and healthy.
The little things.
The little things. Think about the ritualistic affection. The quick hand on the shoulder in the kitchen while passing, the shared laugh over an inside joke when a trigger word is used, the acknowledgement look across a crowded room.
The we know what's really happening here look.
Exactly. It's a moment of co-conspiracy, a quick reconnection that affirms your shared reality, or the simple cuddle on the couch that isn't transactional. It's not a prelude to anything else, it's just confirmation.
So these small gestures are the constant, subtle communication that says, I still choose you right now, in this moment. I still see you as my primary person.
Yes, and when that continuous stream of low-level confirmation fades, the relationship becomes sterile. It's not necessarily hostile, it might even be polite, but it's devoid of the small, loving acts that maintain intimacy.
And the absence of these small confirmations, it feels over time like an overwhelming rejection.
It does, a rejection of the physical and emotional self. The body feels unwanted, unchosen, and invisible, even when they're sleeping right next to you. It creates this deep, unsettling silence around physical closeness.
The furniture is still arranged for 2, the bed is still big enough for 2, but the nonverbal dialogue has just stopped.
And that physical closeness without emotional warmth is what makes the proximity so incredibly painful. It's a constant living reminder of the warmth that used to be or the warmth that should be.
And all these small withdrawals, the lack of curiosity, the superficial listening, the feeding affection, they all coalesce into the final symptom. Symptom 4, effort becomes optional.
This one is the linchpin. Relational maintenance requires consistent, non-negotiable effort. We budget for utilities, we take the car for scheduled maintenance, we go to the gym, even when we don't feel like it.
It's a discipline.
It's a discipline. A partnership requires the same level of consistent, proactive investment. It's a long-term contract that has to be renewed daily, implicitly.
So when effort becomes optional, meaning it only happens when there's nothing better to do, or only when a specific direct request is made.
It implies that the relationship is no longer a priority, but a default setting. It just exists, merely because it hasn't been actively destroyed yet.
The withdrawing partner starts operating under the belief that the bond is resilient enough to withstand neglect.
That they have enough equity built up from the past that they don't have to keep investing today.
And that belief, according to the source, is invariably fatal. You can't live off the interest of past emotional investments forever. The account runs dry.
It absolutely runs dry. The source makes a powerful point here. The partner receiving this message understands that the connection is no longer valued enough to warrant consistent, proactive energy. They internalize that they are being taken for granted. This optionality is the hallmark of emotional laziness.
The belief that they are mine, so I don't have to work for them anymore.
Exactly. And when the effort stops, the message received by the neglected party is brutally clear. You are no longer worth the struggle, the thought, or the time. And this completes the cycle of self-erasure.
Walk me through that cycle again.
The curiosity vanishes, leaving you unseen. The listening fades, leaving you unheard. The affection stops, leaving you physically unacknowledged. And finally, the effort goes, leaving you unvalued. That's how you disappear in a relationship without ever leaving the room.
Okay, the source material really hits its emotional peak when it describes the devastating result of this slow disappearance. It takes all those subtle actions we just discussed, the silence, the optional effort, and it defines the crushing emotional state that it creates. You are not fighting, but the connection is dissolving.
Yeah.
And you are just left with the ghost of a relationship.
This is the critical psychological toll of emotional neglect, and it's precisely why this quiet demise is so much more painful than an explosive breakup. It is the paradox of proximity.
The paradox of proximity.
The experience of having everything look completely right on the outside while feeling absolutely catastrophic on the inside.
Let's analyze the deeply painful scenario that's presented. It says, and the most painful part. You're still married, still living together, still sharing the same bed.
The psychological dissonance there is just staggering. The physical infrastructure of commitment, the shared home, the joint accounts, the proximity in the bed, the expectation from the outside world that you are a unit, all of it acts as a constant, tangible, undeniable reminder of the emotional absence.
You look across the room and you see the person who, by contract and by promise, is supposed to be your closest advocate.
And you realize they are functionally a stranger.
Every shared space is haunted by the ghost of the connection that used to exist, or the connection that you believe should exist.
Yeah.
You are forced to look at the person who is supposed to be your closest confidant and realize they are now the primary source of your deepest loneliness.
And let's contrast this with an actual separation. If you are separated, the physical absence aligns with the emotional reality.
It's honest. It's honest. It creates an honest sense of loss that allows for grieving and eventually moving on. But when you are emotionally neglected within a physically present marriage, you are trapped in a state of sustained cognitive dissonance.
You have to maintain the facade.
You have to maintain the facade. You have to look like a couple to the outside world, maybe to your own children, while internally you're experiencing utter solitude. And this constant clash between the physical evidence of partnership and the emotional reality of isolation is psychologically exhausting. It requires an immense amount of energy just to pretend the emotional void doesn't exist.
This brings us to the concluding heavy state described in the source. But emotionally, you're already alone. Why is this loneliness infinitely more acute than simply being single?
Because the infrastructure for partnership still exists, but the emotional content is gone. Being single means navigating the world as one person with clean boundaries and an honest acknowledgement of your state.
Right. Being neglected means navigating the world, plus carrying the dead weight of a partnership that is taking up physical space, that's demanding logistical effort, who pays the bills, who picks up the kids, but it's offering zero emotional return on investment.
So you're in a partnership with all of the work and none of the reward.
None of the core reward.
Okay.
The person is trapped in an environment that was designed for two, yet it's functionally occupied by only one emotionally available self. And this creates what the source helps us understand as invisible grief.
Invisible grief.
You cannot mourn a partner who is still sitting across the dinner table from you. You feel the profound loss, but you have no social mechanism to validate that grief. You can't tell your friends or your family that your spouse is gone when they are right there physically.
You are grieving a living ghost.
A living ghost. And what stands out to you here, I think, is how this leads directly back to that self-erasure we mentioned earlier.
It has to. If every attempt at connection is met with optional effort or superficial listening, the neglected partner eventually just stops trying. They stop trying to be seen at all.
They retreat inward. They stop initiating conversations, they stop sharing personal victories or hurts, and they stop asking for what they need.
Yeah.
They conclude that it is safer to be alone, truly, honestly alone inside the relationship, than to risk the constant low-grade rejection from the one person whose acceptance they need most.
And this is the final stage of the quiet demise.
It is. The neglected partner accelerates their own disappearance within the relationship because they're seeking safety in solitude.
And I imagine that retreat probably validates the initial withdrawal of the neglectful partner. They might think, see, we don't have problems, we're getting along great, they stop being so needy, which just feeds the quiet demise until the emptiness is all that remains.
The silence gets mistaken for success.
So, okay, let's tie this entire sequence together now, just to give our listener a clear trajectory of this whole thing. The silence prevents necessary conflict, and it hides the relational rot.
Right.
This allows the effort to fade in subtle daily ways, the lack of curiosity, the illusion of listening. This gradual fading creates the profound emotional void, resulting in the partner feeling utterly alone, despite the fact they are still physically present, still sharing the same bed.
And that ultimately is why the quiet demise is so final. The absence of noise allows the relationship to decompose unnoticed. By the time a noise finally erupts, a crisis, a revelation, the announcement of divorce, it's not a moment of breaking. It's merely the sound of the final piece of ash falling from a structure that had long ago burned down to nothing.
The marriage wasn't broken that day.
It was merely declared deceased.
This has been a necessary, and I'll admit, a challenging deep dive. We moved from defining emotional neglect as silence, contrasting it sharply with active conflict, through its subtle daily symptoms, the fading curiosity, the optional effort,
All those little paper cuts.
and finally, to its painful, confusing conclusion.
Yeah.
The paradox of being alone together.
The crucial takeaway, I think, and the point where knowledge becomes most valuable and ready for application is this. Emotional neglect teaches us that relationships are killed less by active malice, by people actively trying to cause pain, and more by passive indifference.
It's neglect, not assault.
It's neglect, not assault. It is a failure of sustained intention and curiosity. It's not about what you say, but what you refuse to ask. It's not about what you do, but the consistent, subtle maintenance you fail to provide because you assume the bond can handle it.
It fundamentally suggests that relationships don't need to be perfect or even free of conflict, but they must always be active. They must always be seen as a priority that requires proactive, consistent investment, not some resource that can be endlessly exploited without replenishment.
And then we have to actively fight the comfort of routine that allows these corrosive, silent behaviors to take root. We have to be willing to look past the surface piece and ask the harder question, are we still attuned? Are we still witnessing each other's inner lives? Or are we just roommates?
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to carry forward from this deep dive. If emotional neglect is defined by silence and the fading of effort, what daily commitment or simple, genuine question must you consciously maintain, even when life is busy, even when you feel drained, to ensure that the person closest to you knows unequivocally that they are fully seen, heard, and valued?
What's the one thing?
Yeah, what's that one small thing? Think about the effort that is so easy to skip, but absolutely impossible to replace. The effort isn't optional, it's essential. We thank you for joining us on this deep dive into relational nuance.
We encourage you to keep these ideas top of mind, to stay curious, and to keep engaging deeply with the world around you.
Until next time, keep digging.